40,000 at Marble Stadium yesterday for Carlton and GWS, and I'll tell you what, it was pretty quiet there for a while. But then, to use that term, they flicked the switch.
Their power in the middle of the ground is enormous for the Blues, and they just smashed them in clearance. Didn't get the use of it in the first half, but after half-time, they started to get their wheels going. And Sam Walsh, 17 score involvements. Now, we talk about Sam Walsh in yesterday, got a lot of ball in the back end, but yesterday it was all front-end stuff, and it was coming out of the front of the stoppage, and he was brilliant. So too Paddy Cripps, 39 disposals and 13 clearances. He wound back the clock, Paddy Cripps, and it was one of the best performances of a 1-2 punch you'll see. And I'll
tell you what, the club would be just as impressed with their on-ground interview afterwards, Sam Walsh and Patrick Cripps. That was just class personified.
Yeah, I think Patrick Cripps, no one deserves a premiership more than him. So hopefully for the Carlton Footy Club, that happens this year, because that was as good a win as I've seen from any team this year with the challenges they've got with injury, which we'll get to. But the three key forwards I want to look at, because in the third quarter, they kicked 5 goals in 6 minutes. And De Koning, he's the prototype for me. If you're going to play 2 rucks, and there's some teams that found this out the hard way in this round, one of them has to be able to play forward, and De Koning certainly can. So perhaps that's a bit of an X factor. I thought Pitnet was excellent when he went into the ruck, his second game for the year, and Charlie Curnow was inaccurate, had 4 behinds before he turned it on, and these two, Harry and Charlie, kicked 5 between them in the third quarter alone, Lordo.
Carlton have plenty of outs, so there's no excuses from a Giants perspective, but no Sam Taylor. And you could just see young Aliir, he tried hard, but you could see as the game wore on, they were lost without Sam Taylor.
And Canelio was out too, that affected their dynamic.
Let's take a look at our first match today, and we spoke about this a little earlier on, and it wasn't a 2-man show, it was a 2-man show, then a 2-man show.
Yeah, it was, TJ. These are 2 top 4 sides, you'd think, and hopefully they're there on preliminary final weekend, because it was a cracking game of football. Curnow, Mackay, De Koning, 9 between them. Cripps, enormous. Walsh, enormous. Matty Kennedy was as well, along with George Hewitt. And then the Giants just went missing when it mattered late, Kano.
Yeah, and they played 2 rucks. So Pitnet came in last week against Adelaide, and it probably didn't work as best as it could have. But how good were they from stoppage yesterday, particularly from centre bounce, led by this man. So he can do the bullocking work. He had 17 touches, 7 clearances, and more importantly, the Blues kicked 6 centre bounce goals and plus 16 for clearances throughout the entire match. So if they can have him do this, and then, as I said, De Koning is a very capable forward, and he comes in fresh as a second ruckman. This could be an extra dynamic that they have got, but he looks hungry, and he's been made to earn it this year, and the results yesterday were pretty stunning.
Different players are playing in different positions when needed, so they're obviously down a couple of backmen at the moment. Matt Kennedy, the last couple of weeks, he's a midfielder, but he's gone back, filled a role, done a job, rolled through the midfield as well. So horses for courses doing well.
I think their ability to roll through as well and change it on the run. So Williams is doing a great job on Toby Green. He gets injured. Another one, Boyd rolls over to Green. He does the job. So I think their lesser lights are becoming more than that. And Cottrell's turning into a very good elite small forward in the game, and he was pretty good yesterday again.
And Kane, they've had to fill holes, some significant absences through injury. We knew that Sard and McGovern went down last week, Chera before the game, all with soft tissue. We know that Wadering over the off-season had problems. Martin and Motlop, equally soft tissue issues. But I just want to raise what Michael Voss said pre-match. This is on the Friday before the game. 0 excuses he was giving his players to perform.
We did have obviously lost a couple of people in a very short turnaround. But from our point of view, it's now just we move on. We look at how we get better and what we need to get better at, and right across our whole football department. But for us now, it's about who's playing, who's out there, what team we put out there, and how do we get a result.
So that's Friday. So who's out there and how we play. And have a look at that. There's some significant names on that list. I know that the GWS team had Taylor and Canelio out, and that affected them. But that's a massive injury list, and they're performing. They've only lost the 1 game by a kick to Adelaide to this point of the season, and with all those players to potentially come back, it's sitting pretty, but it's attitudinal as much as anything.
I know they haven't won anything yet, but how good it is for Vossi, he probably got into coaching too early. And you don't get a second chance too often, but can we remember somebody who's at their second club who's actually made a good fist of it? They don't too often.
And the start last year where the fans are calling for him to be sacked, the media pressure was building, he was coaching for his career. But once again, the leadership that he showed and the club around him, I thought they were terrific through that, and then the back half of last year into this year with momentum and the way that they're handling the adversity. Pretty impressive.
So, Lordo, when you were talking about who have they beaten so far, I mean, have a look at this for the next 3 or 4 or 5 weeks even. This is phenomenal. They are going to be playing in front of packed houses here. Geelong, and then that Carlton-Collingwood game on the Friday night, that will be a complete sellout. There'll be in excess of 90,000 there. And the Melbourne game itself is yet another blockbuster. Sydney will be a sellout, and then you've got Gold Coast at Marvel, and who knows where Gold Coast will be by the time that comes around.
The positive, though, is they're 5-1. So they can even, win, even if you win.
They've banked a few, haven't they?
Banked a few. You win a couple of them, you're still 7-3. So they're in a wonderful position.
You got some votes?
The votes, dominated by the Blues. I've given Cripper a 10. Yeah, he deserves a 10 for what he did yesterday. 39 disposals, 8 tackles, 13 clearances. Walsh, normally your sore second game back. He's a freak, this guy. Matty Kennedy's a huge pickup in DeConing. Gets 7 for his 3 goals.
I want to start with the Carlton Football Club. I think this is the first time for a long, long time you can say that Carlton United is brewing. They are a club in unity at the moment. Hutto, I love what they've done under Vossi. I really do. And I think every week we see something different. Their evolution from just a team that wanted to bash the opposition and win the hard way. They were always difficult to play against, but you could move the ball at times, and they relied on maybe some talent here or there to save them. I just think they're the complete model at the moment. And I think this man's done an amazing job, Michael Voss, in getting this club as one. Doesn't matter who represents them. They've got more players on the sidelines than most. Sard, McGovern, Chera, Martin, Motlop, Cunningham, Fogarty. They're all first-pick 23 players. And they're not there. But it didn't matter that they weren't there because the system stacks up. The belief is there. And I just see them play. And I think this is... Sometimes success is just a look. You don't have to ask for anything. You don't have to demand. You just look in the other person's eyes and you know they're with you. I think that's happening at Carlton. I really do. I'm so excited about what they've been able to do. Not necessarily with the way they play and the numbers and all that sort of stuff, and we'll get to that. I just think right now, you know what you're going to get from Carlton. Forward of the ball, they're dangerous. In the middle, they haven't been at their absolute best until the weekend, and they mauled the GWS Giants in there. And down back, it will only get better when those half-back flankers return. They haven't finished top 4 at the end of the home and away season for 24 years. So they haven't had the luxury of, they had 2 MCG finals last year, then had to go to the Gabba. I just feel that this year it'll be MCG, and who knows. So I'm excited.
You can imagine all those Carlton fans out there.
I think that.
But yesterday, midway through the third, you're starting to go, with all the players out, they could have turned up. They didn't. That was a great performance.
Against good opposition, that had some positives to speak about as well. But, the coach was under pressure last year, didn't faze him. He just got on with the job. I really think that they are the profile and a united club charging at this next opportunity. You see it with 1 or 2 teams a year. It doesn't always work out. But get excited, Carlton fans.
What is positive? I think they can win in all different ways, can't they? Like, they can win defensively, they can win by scoring. We spoke about their stoppage game, Kingy, but they've improved their turnover game. They win the close ones. And if all's not working, they've got some star power that can drag them over the line if needed. Like, they do tick nearly every box at the moment. And now the depth is also getting great opportunity. So, yeah.
I think it's more than that, though. I think that...
Momentum,
it's
feel.
Momentum, it's the belief that they actually know they're good. And sometimes it takes a while to get to that point where you hope you're good enough. I hope we can do this, I hope we can do that. There's no hoping at Carlton anymore. It's let's just do what we're here to do. Let's be diligent enough and professional enough to support one another. And I think we see it now. So I'm excited about the back half
seedings are brought to you by Workday, the finance and HR platform. Joey, are you going first?
Normally it's Kingy. But there you go.
Normally you pick mine apart off the top. Mine's pretty basic. I think you'll agree with mine.
Do you?
Hutto, you'll agree with mine. Carlton, I haven't slipped GWS too far down. I thought they were pretty good without Sam Taylor. Geelong have come up a little bit, and Melbourne find their way.
You haven't done a long wrong. The Cats to be third.
No.
Funny, that's the exact same as mine. I've got Carlton as my number 1. Well, I thought that about myself. I said, why have I got Geelong at 3? I don't know why, but that's mine at this stage, but I'm sure it'll change next week. I don't
think mine's all that much different. Carlton, Geelong in second place, Melbourne third, and the Giants. We all got Sydney
and Port. They're the other 2 at the moment.
Carlton are building. That was a statement win, and they've done it with exposed depth, but they found a way.
And I'm wrapped for Michael Voss because, early last year when they're getting booed off the ground, when they were appalling against the Bombers, we all question, is he up to it? Has he got the tactical nous? But then to still have all these players out and Michael finds a way against the unbeaten Giants with his brand. We talk about brand. You've got to stand by something as a coach, and Michael stands by. You know, they're big-bodied, hard, tough, aren't they, Kane? And they did a number on the Giants. Even Tom Green didn't influence because they were too big for him.
It's powerful. Yeah. Great job on Toby Green as well. Challenge with Williams going off in that matchup. They had to roll that over to Boyd, and he stuck with 2 rucks. So they lost to Adelaide when Pitnet played last week. There was some criticism over that, but he went again, and the results that he got from his 2 ruckmen were extraordinary. I think that's a real weapon for them. I think De Koning could be absolutely anything in this competition because there's teams toying with 2 rucks. But unless you've got one of them who is capable forward, it's not going to work. Now, Pitnet can do the heavy lifting, and then De Koning can come in fresh. And then these two, Walsh and Cripps, and what Sam Walsh has done since he's returned from injury for 2 weeks, 17 score involvements, and that 1-2 punch in the midfield is absolutely flying. Their scoring power, their scoring power that they showed on the weekend against very good opposition, and they were challenged with personnel was a bit of a warning, bit of a warning to the competition. Yeah, no Taylor, no Canelio, but the outs that Carlton had were more significant than that.
It was a terrific game.
It was a good game.
They got marched right to the edge of the plank, 20 points down midway through the 3rd quarter. And my word, did they respond?
Yeah, did they what? Cripps and Walsh, not just those two, but when your leaders take control of a game in the middle of the ground, the momentum that creates in any game is enormous. What Carlton did in a blink of an eye, Jerry, like you're watching and you think, oh, this is interesting. And then about 8 minutes later you say, how did that happen? What happened and how did that happen? And you go through it and you look at it and you go, right, that, him. They were very, very impressive. I mean, Hutto even said at one stage in his call, you know, this is the premiership corner because that's what we all grew up with Carlton in the 3rd quarter. But it was as dominant a quarter that I've seen. I just watched one of the most dominant halves of football that I'd seen for the year at the MCG. We'll talk about that shortly. But, yeah, they look in pretty good nick.
Yeah, it validates their year-on-year progress. It shows how battle-hardened they are, I reckon, from the fire of last September.
You've got to get battle-hardened because it's a long season. And then you've got to go into the hardest season, which is the finals, and you've got to survive 4 weeks of it. They survived 2 weeks and 1 quarter last year, and then... So mentally and physically, they're going to be better. Still a long way away.
Yeah, they're absorbing injury like they hadn't been able to do in years gone by. They were always hostage to their injury list.
A bit depth,
so there's a lot that's been built around there that is so impressive, and it really does validate them.
What about the Blues? So they take on Carlton this week. Now, I'm in the car for most of the first half coming back, and it was a game that needed to be watched because we rate the Giants so highly. The Blues had some issues. There's Giants without Taylor. How do you see it all unfolding?
Oh, it was impressive. It really was. The clearance work, the Bulls were firing. That really kept them in the game. But it looked as if when GWS got out to 20 points halfway through the 3rd quarter, it looked comfortable, the Giants. And then all of a sudden, Carlton got to work and they've got their turnover game going, guys. So this is where they're starting to really, we're going to rate them. And I know they made a prelim final last year, but they still had a fair bit of work to go. They completely flipped the game in the right areas. They were minus 35 in the first half, points from turnover, plus 38 in the second half. And a lot of that came in the last 40 minutes of football. Mackay and Curnow hadn't touched the ball. They were just fantastic. I really think they've improved their run. Obviously, they've improved their method and they trust each other. But if you actually have a look at some of this work on turnover, what's contributing to their turnover is their ability. They've got better runners now, no question about that. But their method's very good. They turn up and support each other. They put enormous pressure on the opposition. And that's what happened. That's why they scored so much from turnover in the second half.
Well, you talk about, support players. Cottrell, both the Hollands boys have been doing Durden here with that chase down. Owies, who's been doing it for a long time too. This is without Motlop and without a couple of the others. Yeah. Those small forwards have been doing a heap of work up and back, and that's what gives you. It's Cowan, who's come in for his first couple of games. So we're seeing players just buy into this pressure and work rate. And once you've got pressure and work rate, you're capable of anything defensively in transition, and then you get the chance to come back fast in offence.
And to be able to do it over a period of time, and we'll get to North Melbourne later on in the piece, and some of these teams are struggling. and the coaching groups must watch this and say, here, you know, we've got to wait for to get games into you. But even those that have been down where we were, like Carlton, have come back on the basis of good recruiting and attracting good players, but effort and work rate. Bring that to the party and you have a chance. And you asked the question last week, was that loss going to haunt them? Are you convinced now that it won't? Like, are you confident that they are in good enough shape now to take on?
There's no question their game is a top 4 style of game. Yeah. No question about it. Great to see them flex. The big bulls are firing. Pitnet's been fantastic the last 2 weeks. Obviously, Cripps was enormous. Sam Walsh was enormous. But the role players, go back to the role players. We're talking about it for Collingwood. We're talking about it for Carlton as well. And the small forwards, Jordan Boyd did a great job on Toby Green. So there's a role player. Fantastic effort. You look at that, Green v Williams and Green v Boyd. So very happy with that result from a role player, Bucks.
So talk about handling players that are out of your side. You know, I mean, McGovern and Sard went out of that back line. Williams goes out injured, and then they just find a way. They find a way to resettle. Newman's been a consistent. You know, Young and Kemp have been in and out, but then Boyd goes and does that job. But Pitnet coming in has been huge, and the stoppage game didn't drop off either. 6 goals, 5 from centre bounce. So if you can add that to your turnover game, you're pretty dangerous.
I can't wait for Vossi v Scotty, Chris Scott.
Going to be better
Saturday.
And you'll